Decals, they are fun to make. Hello and welcome, dear skill modelers, to my small hobby YouTube channel. My name is Toma, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about making your own decals. Okay, so first of all, why would one make their own decals? Well, it's fun, at least in my opinion. If you are something of a nerd like me and you like graphic design and like fiddling around with vector-based images, then this is almost as much fun as making, a scale model. But I have noticed that making your decals can be a bit of a challenge. Now, I have looked online and found on many occasions YouTube videos of people who made their own decals and posted online. But the majority of what I've learned is through my own experience, and I would like to share this with you guys. The first thing is decal paper. Now, you can buy decal paper on Amazon. It's not that terribly expensive, but it's far more expensive than just normal decal, normal paper. They come in sheets of 8, and they cost me 10 euros per 8 sheets of A4 paper. But yeah, you have like the white paper or the transparent paper, and it's basically like a little hard paper with a glossy surface. That's basically all it is, and it allows you to make decals. Now, you have two types of them, for LaserJets and InkJets. Now, I don't really know the basic difference between maybe the makeup of it's different. But I've used the InkJet printing paper in a LaserJet, and it was okay, really. So I don't know, maybe I was just lucky. Now, normally decals such as these come printed from the manufacturer. I think it's called screen printing, where they basically layer on paints. So they start with a base coat of white, and then they paint various colors on top. That way it preserves the color vibrance of the decals. Now, having said that, you cannot print white, obviously. And that presents you with a challenge, especially if you want to make decals for a military type of vehicle that is painted in darker colors. Why I say this is because if you use transparent film, transparent decal paper, and print on that, the printing process is going to be pretty straightforward. You just put your design in the computer, press print, and it's done. There's no real big philosophy to it. But when you cut it out and you place it on the model itself, it fades because the background is much darker than what originally you thought it would be. So as you can see on this particular thing, hopefully, probably not, but there are decals here that you should see from this distance, but you can't because they're here. They're like small decals here and here, and you should have seen them, but you can't because the background is so dark that it just kind of dilutes the color so much that it's absorbed. It just becomes green. It's supposed to be yellow, but it's green. Now, the black decals turned out pretty well and fine. These ones were printed on the white piece of decal paper because I wanted to try that as well. And as you can see, maybe the edge here, if you're not really careful when you're cutting it out, you're going to have this nasty little edge left, and it looks bad, as well as this. And the letter E here has been cut out from a white piece of decal paper because it's supposed to say Velenia, the city. And I just cut out the E to see how complex it would be, and it is pretty big pain in the ass. So why white? Because it acts like a barrier between the paint job of the model and the paint of the decal. And it's like a neutral color, so anything that goes on the white is going to be, neutrally neutral. So that is really very important, and because printers can't print it, you kind of are limited to certain types of decals anyway. Black is no problem because it will be visible on any model, but brighter colors such as reds and greens and yellows and blues are going to be affected if printed on a transparent piece of film. If you're making military tanks, then you're kind of limited to basically just black decals. White can be good if you have, you know, just like stars, very simple shapes where you can cut them out and not be affected too much about the white edge because it's already white. But making like color details, like maybe emblems or something, that is a problem. Another thing that you have to take into consideration is the scale. Obviously, you're making it decals for scale models. Well, at least I am. So when you print out the first version of the decal, you basically have it in either too big or too small. So you have to scale it down. Now, the way to find the particular right scale for your model is two ways. Mathematics, which you calculate and measure and calculate, or the second, which is basically brute force or print force, I would say, where you, I don't know, maybe make this circle in various sizes from small to large, and then you just, you know, compare it which fits to the model correctly. That's one way of making it. I was fortunate enough that I used the measurements from this piece of decal paper for certain small decals that I had to reproduce for my one, so that I knew how big they must be, and that helped me a lot. But if you don't, then you'll have to kind of figure that stuff out. Printers. Printers are also very important, especially the printing resolution of a printer. If a printer cannot make fine detail work, then your fine small details on decals will not be shown. It will be just blobs. So make sure that whatever you're printing is big enough so that your printer can reproduce it on piece of decal paper. Thing that we have to talk about these things. This is basically gloss varnish, gloss and matte varnish, and you need to spray your decal sheet of paper when you print it on with this thing. Otherwise, you're gonna have problems while you're applying the decals onto the model because the paint is gonna run off. Basically, you're gonna smudge everything. And also, when you're printing, the decal paper is of course expensive, and you usually print, you know, you want to save paper as much as possible. And because you have to use this, you can't just, you know, print it like this and then just go all over the place, and you know it's gonna be all everywhere, and it's probably gonna affect the printing job in the future. So what I recommend you do is you print like I did here, and then you cut this thing out and leave the like an edge so that the paper has its integrity, and then just, you know, spray that. But when you're left with a hole here, I just took some normal A4 paper and covered the hole on the back. You know, I taped it on so that when you put it through the printer, it's not gonna crumple together, you know, essentially. So yeah, that's one thing that you have to know, because the paper, again, it's not as cheap as normal A4 paper. Vector-based programming versus pixels. If you have a design that you want to transfer to your decal paper, it is best that it is in vector form. Why? Because vector form graphics can be manipulated and they do not lose their resolution. They do not lose their fine edges the way that pixel-based graphics do. If you have a big design and if it's a pixel-based one, it doesn't matter, right? Because it's gonna be pretty well. But if it's a small design and you want to enlarge it, it's gonna be pixelated, and the edges are not gonna be good, and it's gonna be smudged, and when it gets printed, it's even gonna be worse. Now, if that doesn't bother you that much, it's okay. But if it does, like me, then you have to do a trace. And what I mean by that, and I'll show you a little bit in the future in this video, is basically what you take. You have the image that you wanna reproduce on the background, and on the foreground, you basically just outline the edges of that image and make, you know, layers and layers like you do with like Photoshop or Illustrator or any other graphical design, and you just compile the image together. And like I said, I'll show you that in a minute. But yeah, those are some of the things that you have to take into consideration if you want to make your own decals. But it is pretty fun, to be honest, and it took me like 2 weeks to really do all the research and make sure that I'm spot on. And I really enjoy the process, sometimes even more than actually making this thing. So yeah, but that's why and it's taking me so long to make this helicopter alive. And I'm planning to make more decals of my own, just, you know, because I can, and that just makes it just take the whole process a little longer. So now I'm going to show you how I trace the images so you can do it yourself and you know, have fun. So guys, here we go. This is the fun part of the video, I guess. Hopefully. Let me just say that this is not going to be a tutorial on how to use a graphical design program such as Adobe Illustrator. This is simply the process of how I attempted to recreate this particular symbol or emblem for the helicopter, as you see here. So if you guys want me to do a tutorial how to use, you know, Adobe Illustrator, I guess I can do it, but it's, you know, there's a lot of other people out there who make a very good job at that, so, you know, just saying. Anyway, so this is a example of a emblem that is on one of the helicopters in our army, and I didn't even know that it has this kind of emblem. It's basically a witch on a broomstick. And yeah, funny. Anyway, as you can see, the quality of the picture is not really great, and that shows if you print out a high resolution decal. Now, to be fair, I could have just taken this photograph, this JPEG image, and just make it smaller in size like this, because really it's on the actual plane, it's this small. And if you go zoom out, you see this is like the A4 sheet paper, and that little speck is basically the size of the decal. Maybe it's maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, maybe it's a little bit bigger, maybe like something like this, but truly not bigger. So really it's not that big, and really the detail here is going to be seen no matter, you know, what kind of printer you have. But because I'm a little bit of a stickler for detail, and because I wanted to learn a new skill, you know, and make sure that I do something else besides scale models, I decided to recreate this thing and make it much more appealing to look at. So that is how I came up with this. So I enlarged this photograph to it's from its original size. I don't know how big this actually is, but I just enlarged it, tracing out the most simple geometric shapes of this emblem. So I started with the background. I did the shield with the, you know, the edge, basically just a very simple shield. Then I proceeded in doing Then I proceeded in doing the internal shield with two parts. And then I decided to make the circle, which is actually very simple, and then I combined the whole picture together. This is, I'm just, you know, including layers here. The letters were a little bit more complex because they had curves, and I had to recreate them as best as I could. So this is the 1, the 5, the dot, the H, the E, and the B. So yeah, I positioned them roughly the same way as they are seen on this emblem itself. You notice that there's a little bit of a very small gap here, but because this is a low resolution picture, I was guessing that the letters here are much higher up, so I took some liberty with the, you know, recreation of this emblem anyway. Now the biggest problem with this was the witch in the middle, the witch on the broomstick. From this image, I really could not see well of the fine detail. I knew the basic outline. This is like the hand with the, you know, claws, and the hand, and the broomstick, and the eyes, and the tooth. But you lose a lot of details on the hairs and on the broomstick itself. So what I needed to do is I wanted to find a more detailed picture of this, and I did. After a long time of searching, I found another emblem that is a little bit different, but the witch is much more clearly seen. So I did the same thing as I did with the emblem. I traced out all the stuff. I started with the broomstick with the basic outline. Then I did some fine detail work inside. I continued with the black exterior of the witch's, you know, coat and hat, I guess. Then I took on the face, the basic shape. I took on the hairs and the ear, I guess. Then I took the palm and the fingers with the, you know, claws and stuff. These are probably not as accurate as I was like them to be, but I don't care. It's close enough. And last but not least were the eyes. And this was basically my final product of the witch. Then I just copied all this stuff and I pasted into this previous image, and I got this. And the great way, not the great way, but the great thing about vector images is that you can scale this image in any way you want. Because if you see in this example, the image, if I zoom out a little bit, the photograph was taken at an angle, so the witch is at an angle. So, you know, you have to compensate this when you're putting it on this particular emblem. So that's why vector imaging is great, because you can size it and, you know, anywhere you want, and you won't lose any of the detail because of it. So once I got this, I was pretty happy. And now you can basically just, you know, resize anything. You could just, you know, take everything and reshape it, resize it, and, you know, even though you make it like smaller as much as you want, if you go close in, you still see all the details that are there, right? As long as the printer has the ability to make a very detailed picture, the detailed image, you can pretty much make it smaller or as bigger. You know, I can make it like really big, like huge, you know, and it will still have its form, right? So that is the beauty of vector images. So these are the decals that I've done for this particular project, the Gazelle, and I went into a very good detail on how to reproduce the decals, because if I zoom in closely, you'll see that, you know, I made all these things exactly as they are on the real thing. Hopefully I managed to capture the right scale. I'm not really sure about that, but I used the original decal sheet of paper that came with the Gazelle, and I measured it from there, so I think I'm pretty good. If some of you might have seen this little lettering that says Gazella, the letter L has a loop, and I think on the original there's just a line there, so I took some artistic liberty with my this design choices, because I think it's much better this way. So anyway, these are the decals, all of them, that go on both sides of the helicopter, and they're going to be professionally printed, because as I said, I could not reproduce these letters that are white clearly enough for me to cut them out without destroying the decal itself. So yeah, that's why I'm going to do this, and it's going to cost a little bit more than I would like to, but it's still better than you know, losing time and energy trying to cut every single detail out. And just to give you an example, I will receive 10 decal sheets of this for 30 euros plus shipping 5 euros, so 35 euros total, which is pretty damn expensive for a couple of decals, to be honest. But you know, it's a project I wanted to try. Now I made a deal. I'm gonna get them soon, and I'll tell you all about it once I will finish the helicopter itself. But yeah, so that is it. That's all that I wanted to share with you guys in this video. I hope you enjoyed, and if so, please like, comment, and subscribe. If not, give it a thumbs down or thumbs up. Anyway, I will see you guys again soon in the next video. Bye bye.